Good evening and welcome to the March 6th, 2023 meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. My name is Stephen Spur and I am Chairman of the Summit Zoning Board. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10:4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here in City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube page and also broadcast on Summit's government channel, which is Comcast Channel 34 and Verizon Channel 30. Please note that fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system here at the dais and return it after our meeting. Andy Ball is the zoning board's attorney. He will advise the board members on matters of law and is the key interface with an applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Stephanie Sulios is a city employee and is the zoning board's secretary. Ms. Sulios assists applicants with the preparation of their applications, planning our agendas, and keeping our meeting minutes. Ms. Sulios also does not vote on the application. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings tonight, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Some applications require 5 affirmative votes to be approved. You will be told which majority will be required before we begin our deliberations. Ms. Sulios, will you please call the roll of the members?
Sure. Chairman Spur?
Here.
Vice Chairman Steiner?
Here.
Ms. Newell? Here. Mr. Gonzalez?
Here.
Mr. Mullen?
He just
stepped out.
Okay.
Be right back.
All right, he'll be right back. Mr. Millay?
Here.
Mr. Loikitz?
Here.
Ms. Toth?
Here.
Ms. Sager? Here. Mr. Feskins is excused this evening, as well as Mr. Yuko. You have a quorum. You may proceed.
Okay. We generally hear the applications in the order they are listed on the agenda. We try to have each hearing last no more than 30 minutes, but do understand that some applications are too complex to be heard within that time frame. Each hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney giving an overview of the application and the variances that are required. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. The board members may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. I'll let the record show that Mr. Mullen has arrived. Once the board members, board professionals have completed their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. This is not the time to tell us what you think about this application. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Before you ask your questions, please clearly state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address. It is important that our court reporter be able to keep a clear and accurate public record. The court reporting is conducted over the audio-visual system here, so please speak clearly into the microphone as well. After all witnesses have been heard, members of the interested public have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time, you may express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. Then the public hearing is closed, and we enter into executive session where board members discuss the application and vote. You will be able to listen to our executive session, but you will not normally be able to participate in our discussion. Most applications are heard and decided in the same evening. If an application requires additional information or testimony that cannot be presented tonight, we will carry your application to another date, and it will not be decided during this meeting. Krista Anderson, the city zoning officer, has asked that I remind all applicants that they must carefully read the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and to pay particular attention to the conditions contained in the resolution. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all conditions in a resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, as it will necessitate additional follow-up from zoning and other city staff. The resolutions documenting the board's decision will normally be available 1 month after we decide the application. Before we hear from the applicants, if you'll join me, rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We have 2 applications this evening. I'll ask just a representative from each application to come forward first. First, Jamal Jamani, 64 Canubrook. Just ask you to come up here to the podium real quick. Hello, Mr. Jamani.
Hi.
Just quickly, do you have an attorney or any professionals with you this evening?
Yes, my architect.
Just your architect. And you think you can complete the application in 30 minutes?
Oh, yes, I hope so.
Excellent, wonderful.
Yes.
You can grab a seat real quick. We're going to hear just from the second applicant very briefly, and then we'll hear from you. Yep. Relevant Development LLC. Ah.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. James Weber of Alfonso and Weber. On behalf of Relevant Development, we have 5 witnesses.
5 witnesses.
We might be able to finish tonight.
Okay, but maybe a little more than 30 minutes.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. All right, Mr. Giamatti, we'll hear from you first, and then we'll let them proceed. So first, we're going to swear you in.
Okay.
So if you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And then please state your name, spell your last name.
Jamal Jamani, Jumani.
All right, so tell us a bit about the application, and then you have an architect here, so we'll make sure that he does all the heavy lifting for you.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having us and giving us the opportunity. So we are at 64 Canoe Brook Parkway, which is a 1950s split-level style home. We're hoping to add a second story to our home. This addition, although not increasing the current width of our existing footprint, will reduce the total side yard percentage to 26.88%, which, whereas 33% is required. So that's why we're requesting the variance today. We believe that we've been in Summit, my family and I, 2 boys and wife are sitting here. We've been here since 2015. We like the neighborhood. We love the Washington School District, so we want to stay here, but we want to give ourselves a little bit more room with 2 growing boys. So we're hoping this addition, it conforms to the neighborhood. It aesthetically conforms to the neighborhood. It's not, encroaching upon the neighbors on either side. The size of the yard is staying the same. We're just building up essentially. We're going to add more backyard space as well to the house as well. So we think overall it'll be beneficial for us. It'll be beneficial for Summit as well. So that's from my perspective.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for Mr. Giamatti? Hang out there for 1 second. Any questions from the board?
Quick question about your deck. Did you increase the deck, or did you buy
No, it was previously approved. If you look at
but the size is different, I believe.
the size is different of the deck. We didn't change anything. It was the same as it was previously approved.
Okay. I'm sure the architect can add some detail to that if necessary. Any questions from our board professionals? Not really planning testimony. Are there any members of the interested public here, not family or professionals, that are interested in this particular application? No? Okay. Excellent. Mr. Giamatti, grab a seat if you'd like. We'll invite your architect to come forward.
All right, if you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Chris Teeter, T-E-E-T-E-R.
Thank you, and have you appeared before this board before?
Not before Summit, no.
Can you briefly describe your background, experience, and 3 boards you've appeared before recently?
Yes, so I said 3 boards? Yeah, so 3 boards, East Brunswick, Edison, Westwood. 20 years experience, licensed in 6 states right now, including New Jersey since 2014. Undergraduate, Kansas, graduate, master, UPenn. That's it.
Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept this credentials?
We'll accept your credentials. You can begin, Mr. Teeter.
Mr. Giamatti mentioned 2, one of the variances. One was the side yards, which is existing. We're just going up, not going in any direction, left or right, from the front. And the other one was the coverage. It's 20%. We're actually going to 21.81. And Collier's engineering design report, there were notes about certain discrepancies, which I could clarify now, in our drawings. The 21.81 is what we're asking for on the coverage. And then the additional space is 138. And then with regard to the deck is existing. It's not changing. It's the exact same size. There might be, again, a typo or an error somewhere in the middle, but there's no change there. That's really the 2 items. As far as the house.
Just to pause there maybe for a second. Are you tracking this, Andy, for the resolution?
Yes, I think so. I guess for clarification, it seems the architectural plans were 22 feet by 12 feet. What's the current size of the deck? Is it 22 by 12 or 20 by 12?
I did bring a set of drawings, but I don't have them in front of me.
You can grab them if you like.
Okay.
Got plenty of time. Mr. Weber's very patient.
Just for reference, Krista's memo notes that the survey reflects the dimensions are 20 by 12.
Yeah, so whatever the surveyor says, that's what I'm going by, because ultimately he documented as a professional, so that would be the
Okay.
final measurements.
Anything else you'd like to call attention to in the engineer's letter, or maybe Dipti, if you want to jump in, you're welcome to.
Okay. Are you done?
Yeah, those are the ones I think were important, but there might
Go ahead,
be a few
Dipti.
more.
Okay.
Lay it on it. Go ahead.
No problem. Let me just make sure. Okay, some discrepancies in general. The location survey that was from 2015, that's not a discrepancy. Will you say that the survey reflects what the conditions are
Yes,
currently?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Second thing is, there was a noted garage to be removed, which is noted as 165 square feet. However, on sheet A100, it was approximately 136 square feet, so we just want to make sure the areas are consistent.
It's 165.
And 165,
Yes.
okay. We would ask to revise the proposed site plan to depict the new limits of the asphalt driveway, just to show the actual outline of it.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. And then, as we keep going, talk to- okay, there was just, we don't have any exception taken for stormwater improvements. We understand that the lot coverage is going to be less, but there was a note on sheet P100 that says excavate area for dry well, so is there?
That's a mistake.
That's a mistake, okay, no problem. The soil and erosion and sediment control plans should be submitted to the city because you'll have a disturbance of mostly greater than 600 square feet.
Okay.
And I think that was it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just maybe, Mr. Germani, what we typically do is we condition the application on acceptance of the engineer's letter. So all that stuff that you just talked about, you would just give us the thumbs up that if we approve the variance, you would agree to make all of those amendments. Is that acceptable to you?
I did have a question on this last.
Maybe just come forward so we can get you in the microphone here. Sorry. Thank you.
I guess my only question was being the soil and erosion plans. The garage being removed, it's basically the same type of space as the asphalt, I guess, that would go in, but that still counts as disturbance?
Yeah, anything that you're removing is just considered disturbance.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
That's why we request that.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks for the
So it'd be
clarification.
acceptable to add a condition
Yeah.
accepting what's noted in the engineer's letter?
Yes.
Thank you, Mesh. Thank you. Anything, Andy, you wanted to draw attention to there, or?
Maybe just clarification from Dipti. Was the requirement to submit revised site plans in your memo already?
Yes,
Okay.
it was,
Cross this one out here. That's all I had.
yes,
Okay.
stated.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Teeter, anything else you'd like to draw attention to?
That's it. Do
Okay.
you have any questions?
I have questions maybe about the HPC's comments. Did you have an opportunity to review HPC's comments?
Yeah, I saw those. I guess the quick response would be the original house is probably some kind of mid-century track spec house, 50s, 60s,
No, but I was
that
gonna
we're
call her for HPC stuff.
essentially modifying that actually will fit the neighborhood better.
Okay.
It doesn't look like it's in California anymore. Then with regard to the finishes, those are still to be determined, and
Okay.
the client will work, I think you have some guidelines, we'll be willing to work with those, but those have not been,
Work with the guidelines.
yeah, those have
It'll
not been selected yet.
largely conform with the character of the property or the surrounding properties.
Yeah, so
generally,
nothing,
correct?
nothing out of the ordinary, with the siding, roofing would blend in, shingles, vinyl siding, nothing
Okay.
strange.
Okay. I would just note that our resident, former member of the HPC, Claire Toth, is recused from this case, so otherwise she'd be the one taking up the mantle for HPC. If anyone else would like to layer on, though, you're welcome to it. Any questions about the material, Scott, or anything bothering you there? No?
No.
Cool. That was really the only thing that stood out to me. Any other questions from members of the board? It's pretty
Yeah.
straightforward, right?
It is, but I also did notice some, I guess, a pooling of water at the end of the property. Do you have-
Point of the what?
Pooling of water, there was like a pump and then.
Oh, actual pooling of water.
Yeah.
And, reality. you mean.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, so he, Jamal, you wanna talk to that?
Are you referring to the left side?
Yes,
So that's the neighbor's sump pump with the white pipe that's sticking out, that's going out?
And it
That's
dumps into
actually
your
the
lawn?
neighbor's, say what again?
and it dumps into your backyard.
No, it dumps into the sewage going out, or the drain, the storm drain going out. You're talking about left side, the front, right?
No, I'm talking your backyard, if we're facing your house, or if we're on your deck, it's on your left and the back by the trees.
Yeah, no, that doesn't do anything. That's always been, we've never noticed it. It hasn't made an issue to our neighbor or us.
Okay.
Caused an issue for either one of us.
Diana, what's on your mind? You look deep in thought. over there. No, you're gonna hold back? Okay. All right. Any other questions from the board or the architect? If you is good. Ed, nothing caught your eye. You're here, I mean, I might as well ask you. Okay. Mr. Giummani, if that's your only expert witness, we'd welcome you to come up and say anything in closing you'd like. You don't have to say anything. I know you got bedtimes to deal with here soon, so no worries. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and we'll just note again that there are no members of the interested public here to either ask questions or offer their opinion in favor or in opposition to the application. Before we move into executive session, Andy, would you remind us, maybe first the variances and then secondly, the conditions?
Yeah, so the only variance being sought is the side yard, total side yard percentage, variance as noted before. The only condition I have is our usual one, compliance with those conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum. Nothing terribly out of the ordinary.
Okay.
I think, isn't there both the total side yard variance and the max building coverage? Aren't they both variances?
The architect did indicate a second one.
Yeah, it's 26.88% for the total side yard variance, and I think 21 point,
It's in Krista's follow-up note on the next page.
Got it. Yep. My mistake, there are indeed two. So, yes, and then as noted, that 21.81 is the correct percentage there.
Thank
I
you.
had seen 21.01 somewhere else, but is
I
that,
think they were saying that was the typo.
that was the typo?
typo.
Okay.
Who would like to begin deliberations then? Oh, a volunteer, please, Scott.
I think this is an entirely reasonable proposal. They're not asking for a lot. It's going to greatly improve the quality of life inside the house, and I agree with the architect. There's no way to take this sort of Eichler house ripoff and make it 2 stories tall and keep the intent of the original design. So what he proposed makes complete sense aesthetically, and I'm in favor of this proposal.
I am too, and I would take exception to the HBC's commentary. Having lived in the neighborhood for a long time, there is very little architectural significance in the entire neighborhood. But overall, it's a good addition, and I think it'll make the functionality and use of the home
It's a nice
much better with no perceivable detrimental effects.
Anyone from this side care to weigh in?
How can you top that, so?
That's pretty good,
Yeah, you
right? Charles, anything you'd like to add, Rapid? Cool. No, I would echo the comments from this side of the dais. It's a thoughtful expansion, minimal impact on neighboring properties, though we may take exception to the HPC's general characterization of the neighborhood. Appreciate the intent of the applicant to try to conform this property in its revised form to something of an improved state. So please choose your material wisely, I suppose I'll leave you with.
Before we do vote, let me just clarify, because I'm double checking what Krista has noted here. The building coverage was, there was a previous variance for this property at 21.81%. Yes. What is the final building coverage being proposed?
It's 21.81.
Okay, so we're complying with the prior variance.
Yes,
So we
it's
don't,
the same.
we don't need another variance here tonight. The resolution will recognize that a prior variance was granted, but it's just continuing. So I was actually right. The only variance we are considering tonight is total side yard.
Except
All right,
that.
mic drop.
There you go.
Wait a minute, I think she indicates later on in her thing that it has, even though going up, you have to do it again.
Ooh,
No, the building coverage does not change. The total side yard is what's triggered by that.
The
we're gonna
ordinance
meet
does
in the
not
middle.
permit non-conforming conditions to be expanded in any way, including by constructing new walls upward. So if we're going up, we got a variance.
All right, fair enough. We'll grant both. And
Sorry.
confirm it again at the same exact figure, but
I mean, I didn't write it and I don't know.
Watch the resolution language carefully, Joe, and we'll make sure it works.
No, I never do that.
You're the only one that's, no, just kidding. We have a motion to approve the application with the condition as noted.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Vice Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikett,
Yes.
Chairman Spark.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Germani. You're welcome to go. Yeah, please. Put those kids to bed, please.
Yeah, take those racing sneakers out of here.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Weber. Show is yours.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. James Weber of Alfonso and Weber on behalf of Relevant Development LLC. That's Manny Castira's LLC. Mr. and Mrs. Castira live on Prospect here in Summit, and they have built homes previously in the city. The one that what comes right to mind was the home where there was a single-room occupancy next to the Mabee Playground ball court. I'm not sure if Mr. Steiner remembers what that area was like, but you had a single-room occupancy there that the Casteras converted to a 3-apartment building. And through that, you had the cascade that moved down toward Morris Avenue on the Summit Avenue area where people felt the ability to reinvest in the property. They are bringing this application here with regard to 709, which is currently the site of a commercial structure and a single-family residential structure. What's being proposed in this R15 zone is to create 2 townhouse-style homes that will appear as single-family residences, and they're doing this in a site that is, as best described by the civil engineer, as challenging. In my memo, I had described the change in elevation being 30 feet. I've been corrected by Ms. Sheth, who's indicated that the change in elevation from Springfield to the back property line is almost or about 40 feet. That significant change in grade is not just at the back of the property, but is also to the side, where you have the Board of Ed property and you have the city property. You have the Board of Ed administrative offices there, and then further down toward the center of town, you have the former Red Cross building and now the Unitarian structure. Across the street, you have a 4-unit affordable housing. You have a 2-family and another 2-family. And so as a result, you have a type of diversity of development in this area that will support what is being proposed here. Now, the board's focus on this one is whether this application will peculiarly fit this particular location. And we're submitting to the board that this in fact does do that. And it's really because of the challenge of managing the development of this property in a way that actually works with the grade. one of the points that's been made is there will never be a retaining wall more than 5 feet high. Let me repeat that. This is a 40-foot change in grade from Springfield Avenue to the back property line on both sides. And they have designed this in a way by using the structures of the principal buildings, having a private yard behind that, having the garages with a rear entry garage. We can go to the next. With a rear entry garage, and what you have in that ability is even on the one point on the right-hand side, you have that 5-foot retaining wall. Otherwise, what has happened is using the structures and working with the grade, they have been able to define a type of townhouse structure that fits in this type of zone. Otherwise, what you're looking at is, as this board's well aware of all of the steep slope variances that it deals with the single-family residential dwellings, those structures come in, people say, I bought the property, but now I don't have a backyard. I need a backyard for the kids. I need the backyard for the pool. I need the backyard, because that's what you're defining when you have a single-family detached structure. When you have a townhouse type structure, as we're proposing here, then you have people that will still enjoy a private yard between the townhome and the garage, but this is the type of diversity of housing that is reaching out to a particular type of purchaser. I believe it's within walking distance to the New Providence train station by King's. It's walkable. It's
Downhill.
it's
One way.
downhill. So the variance is the fact that this is the R15 zone, and we have a planner, and the planner will point out that your R15 zone is not single-family only. It allows a number of uses. It tends to be a more encompassing type of zone district. So we have that. The floor area ratio, Krista Anderson indicated that we were starting at 35. She said, no, you're too high. It's 28.5, where 25% is permitted. With regard to building coverage, we're at approximately 19.8, and we're counting, when you take away the front porches, then you come closer to the conforming. Those front porches, as a board, I would submit to the board, is as much an amenity for the community as it is for the persons living there. Lot coverage, due to the fact, we go back to the site plan, due to the fact that although there's just one driveway, so that works for all the units, because you have the rear entry at the back of that, you have the increase in lot coverage. They have attempted to ameliorate that with permeable pavers in those private yards. However, under your ordinance, those permeable pavers are still counted in lot coverage. The total amount of permeable pavers comes to around 6%, so you're coming down to around 41% in practicality, where 35% is permitted. In terms of the working with the grade, we have a little bit of a bump up with the garage, where 22 feet and 18.5 feet is proposed, 18 is permitted, because you're allowed to have an additional height for a detached accessory structure, as long as you get the pitched roof to match that of the principal structure. And as a result, the 22 feet is really due to the fact we're still working with the grade. There is steep slope disturbance, of course, and I'm just running through mine. The side yard setbacks are met. Krista Anderson indicates that the combined side yard is clearly met because each building individually meets the combined side yard, conforms with the front yard, conforms with the rear yard. The principal structure conforms with the height, even though we have the standard of the lowest to highest. Because of the way that we're working with the grade, no variance is associated with that. The driveway, because we're combining those units into using one driveway, driveway's wider than permitted under the ordinance. I believe that covers, in general, the amount of variances that are required with regard to this. As with any use variance, a number of these, the two principal structures on one lot is subsumed underneath the D1 variance. The FAR, that's a D variance as well, 5 votes. And I believe that covers that. Unless the board has any questions of me, let me tell you who the witnesses will be. Be Manny Castira, just to introduce. Then we'll go with Dave Robinson, the architect. Then we'll go with Fred Stewart, the engineer. And then at that point, we have Ed Clark, the landscape architect. And we do have a landscape plan that's been put in place. It's been previewed by John Linson, your forester. And this reminds me of the accolades that you've heard me say it before, but your community services just does a remarkable part. And Ms. Solios was able to get us that report today in order to have this ready for the hearing
And
tonight.
thank you, John Linson, for doing this on his day off, right?
And that is Samantha Alfonso, who's also here on behalf of the applicant,
Thank
with Alfonso and Weber. I forget so many things. So here we have the landscape plan. This would be marked, Mr. Ball. So I believe this would be A1.
This hasn't been filed yet. This is one of the,
This is what Mr.
Stephanie,
Linson
that
reviewed today.
yeah. He reviewed the non-rendered version, is that right?
That's correct.
The same
And
plan,
we
just
have
not
his
rendered.
report here.
We have his report.
That's right. Thank you.
And so you can see that landscaping is being provided on the perimeter at the direction of Mr. Linson. Attempts to save as many trees as possible is being proposed. And to the extent that we can highlight on the next page, the courtyard, the private yard. And it might be the next one after that. Thank you. And so in the upper left-hand corner of L3, you can see this is the landscaping for the private yards between the garage and the individual townhouse. Each of those yards will be separated from the other by a wall. And if you're looking in the lower right-hand corner of what's up on the screen now, that would be a picture of the wall. And then if we go to another blow-up, we see that's looking at the wall between the two properties, so that you'd see the two together, again, with the wall in the middle and the individual private yards. This was very important to Mr. Castira. He had brought the landscape architect in to work with the architect and the engineer because of the challenging site. And so this architecture is as much the landscape architecture is as much an element of this as the overall design, both architecturally and from an engineering standpoint.
Can you just orient me here a little bit? This is one of the buildings and the garage is like behind me?
We'll have Mr. Clark. We'll have Mr. Clark testify with regard to that. But what you're looking on is the garage would be in the background. If you're looking at the bottom screen.
Bottom picture, right?
I'm at the back of the house looking towards the garage.
Yes.
Ah,
So we go up
thank
a
you.
little bit. The back of the house would be on the right, the garage would be on the left.
And you're referring to the cross-section on the right at the top.
I'm referring to the one on the
She's-
bottom.
Yeah,
The one on the
the
bottom.
bottom she's looking at.
We're looking at the garage.
Looking at the garage from the back of the houses.
Where is the drive?
And the driveway's on the left side so this is the
Right.
this is the right-hand building and the garage is coming up the left. That's the middle, the more
That's-
depressed one. is
That's
where the-
correct.
Where the driveway is.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Any additional introductory comments?
There were.
Please,
So I
continue.
appreciate the observation there. Ms. Anderson had indicated that she had a concern about the fact that you had a 28-foot clearance from the garage door to the rear wall. While ordinarily your aisles in your parking lots are 24 feet, she was there going out 28. She would feel better if the actual area within the garages was expanded. So the garages are now at 38 feet, and as a result, that is the other variance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. She would expect and would recommend that the garages be expanded to 40 feet, so you'd have more room maneuvering inside the garage bay, which also eliminates or ameliorates one of the variances associated, because city has a standard now where they want the interior garage spaces to function. So there's a particular size, and as a result, that would now be expanded to allow for easier maneuverability within the garage itself.
Are you saying that's changing?
That is changing. We're going to recommend, we would like to adopt that and amend the application to include that variance to go from 38 feet in width on the garages to 40 feet. We had a chance to look at that, and
That'll change all your statistics, correct?
It will change the lot coverage, and it will change the building coverage. That is something that Fred Stewart, the civil engineer, is ready to testify to.
Okay.
Just technical point, you're going to submit the whole digital package, because some of this is colored, some of it isn't.
Yes,
So why don't
absolutely.
we just take the whole thing in one shot, and that
There's-
way you don't have to change
We
it?
accepted it as A1, yep,
We can do that.
Okay, you took the whole thing as A1,
yes.
not just the one drawing.
We'll take as much as she can give us. That's Stephanie, and they can
can do
sort it
that.
out. Thank you. Okay, anything else you'd like to say as an introduction?
Nothing more,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
before you move to your first witness, are there any members of the interested public here this evening that are not part of Mr. Weber's gang here of expert witnesses, applicants, anyone else that's joined him? You are? You are neighbors, I presume? Yes. Okay, so how this will work is you'll have the opportunity as the attorney presents, as each of the expert witnesses present, to ask questions. And at the very end of the application, hopefully this evening, we'll do our best, you'll have the opportunity to offer your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. So I'll do my best to try to look for you, and if you're interested to come forward, you do not have to ask questions at every witness, but we want to give you that opportunity.
Okay, I can ask a question.
If you like to, you're going to come forward, yep, and you're going to give your name, your address, and just questions at this time, and that would be directed to Mr. Weber at the moment.
So Benjamin Bowen, 10 Hillview Terrace, since 1999. So we're the house immediately to the north, so above the garages and the parking lot. So I guess I'm trying to understand how the math works, because the lot is 188 feet deep. The retaining wall, the 5-foot retaining wall, is set back 30 feet according to the plan. And so there's what's left, 138 feet of driveway with a 40 minus 5-foot drop. So that's like an 18% grade, if I'm doing my math right. So I'm just trying to understand that.
Well,
So I hope
the
the engineer
civil
can,
engineer will be able
because,
to address that.
I mean, and then, I guess the knock-on question from that is there a consideration, it's probably not in the codes, but a consideration as to, you know, the intrinsic hazard of a steep grade going into a busy street like Springfield Avenue?
Mr. Weber, would you care to answer any of those now, or we'll carry those forward to the civil engineer?
We'll wait for the civil engineer.
Excellent, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, well, happy to hear from your first witness.
I'd ask that Manny Casira be called to the stand to be sworn in to give testimony in this manner.
You can raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name and spell your last name.
Manuel Costera, C-O-S-T-E-I-R-A. You guys call me Manny, but it's the official name.
And where do you live?
73 Prospect Street here in Summit.
I've indicated to the board that you had previously improved the single-room occupancy at 20 Summit Avenue next to Navy Playground. And that had given you the taste to rehabilitate certain properties here within the city. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And with regard to the property at 709 Springfield Avenue, which is the subject of the application before the board for tonight, are you the owner of that property?
I am.
And are you authorized to speak on behalf of Relevant Development LLC?
I am.
Are there any other members besides you who within within the
Tongue
applicant?
twister. My wife, Adriana, she's here.
And Adriana is here as well. And then with regard to the application, can you describe what's proposed to the board in a general sense?
Well, we'd like to build what you know, what you've proposed here to improve that property. We bought it as a result of having sold another property and rolled 1031 exchange into this lot. And
What's
so,
a 1031 exchange?
when you finish building a project or a home, the accountants recommend that you take that, the proceeds from that and put it into another property for tax benefits. And, you know, it's also another project for me to do, which I enjoy doing. Done several of them here in Summit. And so this was the piece we picked.
And then with regard to proceeding with this project, have you retained the services of an architect, Dave Robinson?
I have.
A civil engineer, Fred Stewart?
I have.
And a planner, McKinley Mertz?
Yes,
And a landscape architect, Ed Clark?
correct.
And have you had an opportunity to review the reports of the various board staff in connection with this application?
Yes, I have.
And subject to the comments and recommendations of your experts, are you willing to abide by the recommendations
I am.
of the staff?
I am.
I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant from the board? Yes, please.
Chairman, just one question. Are these proposed units for sale?
Yes,
Okay.
And that would be in a condominium form of ownership?
correct.
And you're planning on, one of the points that the planner had to come up was, why not subdivide this? But you're doing this entirely as one unit, with all 4 units on one site. And you understand that there will be repercussions associated with that in terms of your contribution to the city's affordable housing.
I do.
And you've paid a city affordable housing fees previously.
I'm familiar with that.
So you're aware of that. And you were advised that if you were to subdivide it, that there could be an argument to avoid that.
Correct.
And you're still willing to go ahead with one consolidated site?
I am.
Okay.
Okay. Dipti, any questions for the applicant from you?
No,
No?
thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the interested public for the applicant? No? Okay. Excellent.
I would ask that David Robinson of SWAD Architecture be called to the stand to be sworn in to give testimony in this matter.
Hi. Good evening, everyone.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
It's Dave Robinson. I'm a partner at SUAD. Last name is Robinson, R-O-B-I-N-S-O-N.
Thank you. Can you briefly describe your background, experience, and 3 boards you've appeared before recently?
28 years of experience. I have a bachelor's degree in architecture. I have testified before this board in the past, as well as City of Newark's Central Planning Board, Board of Adjustment, Township of Union, and others. So,
Licensed in New Jersey?
license is current.
Any questions from the board, or would you like to accept it once again?
That's what counts, a current license. Welcome. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very
Robinson.
much.
Now, Mr. Robinson, you indicated that you work together with your partner. Who's your partner?
My partner is my wife, Madeline Ruiz. She's watching right now.
And are you familiar with the application that's currently pending before the board?
Yes, I am.
And you're familiar with the city of Summit?
Yes, I am.
And how are you familiar with the city of Summit? What is that familiarity based on?
Well, I've done projects here in the city, and I've visited the city many times.
And in connection with the proposal that's currently pending before the board, what were the programmatic needs of the applicant? What effect did the Development Regulations Ordinance, and what was the challenge associated with the topography? And how did you bring all those 3 elements together in connection with what's proposed?
Well, as you say, the site is very challenging. We were able to manipulate the forms of the dwelling units separately and stack them to match the topography of the house, of the land, while also stacking the yard and then the garages in the back. So as it is a complex shape of land, we're able to manipulate the forms of the dwelling units to match that.
And what, and in doing that, you were able to stay generally within the confines of the floor area ratio at 28.5?
Yes.
And the
Yes, we
building
were.
coverage, you're able to stay generally within the permitted of 18, you're at 19.8 if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, that's correct.
And in terms of the change in elevation, I've indicated, based on Ms. Schatz, the civil engineer's comment, that it changes from 40 feet from Springfield to the rear lot line. And so you've been able to, by manipulating the structures, manage that without the need for extreme retaining walls?
Yes, we have, in coordination with the engineering partners, we were able to do many steps coming down that topography to absorb the difference in that slope.
And what's up on the board right now is a rendered version of the perspective of what's proposed in connection with this application. And that's been included as part of the package, I believe, Mr. Chairman. What are the elements that are continued here in terms of materials, in terms of design? What were you looking at when you came up with this design?
Well, first and foremost, when we visited the site initially, the existing dwelling and the commercial structure were far back on the lot. And we felt by bringing a better sense of streetscape to Springfield Avenue is to bring the presence of those facades forward, to better define that streetscape and align with the properties that were to the west and consistent with the properties across the street to the south. To the right is the public land, which is open and wooded, but we felt that working with the land to really kind of establishing that frontage for the street, we thought that was really, really important.
What are the materials that you propose to use?
These buildings are highly detailed. We feel that we would like to use fiber cementitious siding and panels on all four sides of the structure. We thought it was really important to get a lot of character in architectural detailing, making three-dimensional trim pieces, popping out windows. We really are supportive of porches. They are wonderful architectural elements in any town and any city. We feel that it helps enforce the streetscape and the community of, in general. We took these two structures that were, on the insides, they're built very similarly.
Well, before we get to the inside,
Okay.
let's finish talking about the exterior materials.
So we have lots of, the cementitious siding. We have some portions of roofs that are metal. We have some asphalt shingled areas. We have elements that we find in the neighborhood. The chimneys we think are a great element of a dwelling. The front-facing gables, which really define shapes that are very strong elements of residential design. And we push and pulled with the facades to give them some detail. Instead of just a flat wall, we thought it was important to manipulate that form, to make it, what we call as a residential feel.
And when you talk about the chimney as shown in this perspective seems to show that you're going to have a type of material that will cover the outside of that chimney throughout. What is that?
We're playing with the idea, proposing that it's a stone veneer.
And when you say you put the cementitious siding on all four sides, is it sometimes the aspect of other design where they only put it on the front and then on the other sides which are hidden from street view, there's a less desirable material?
Usually that's the case, and sometimes, but we feel that these dwelling units are special, and that the spaces behind them are just as important as the spaces in the front for the people that are living in these buildings and that are visiting these buildings.
If we can then go to the floor plans.
What material will the garage exteriors be covered in?
There as well, the same material.
Same. Great.
Okay.
Can we expand one of them?
I can do my fingers? Look at that. Okay. Everyone can see that? Is this a pointer?
If you'd like to, yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at what we're calling Unit A and B. And A and B is equal to C and D on the ground floor and the upper floor. So essentially, they're the same buildings, but mirrored. So if we're going to look at unit number A on the left, which is this unit here, and again, we started to transition in levels as we go up the landscape. So we're coming up some steps to a porch, which is right here. And then once you go into an entry vestibule, you again go up a few more steps into an open great room, which is right about here with the fireplace, and then the open
What's the
stair.
ceiling like in the great room?
There's a ceiling that has detail to it. We would like to see coffered ceilings with, beams that are, expressed that are potentially a different material.
And just, Mr. Castillo, you understand the representations that the architect is making right now, that you're going to be bound to those representations if the board approves the application.
Yes, I've recommended some of them myself, so.
I did
I'm
turn and
familiar.
say that's expensive, right, Manny?
Yeah.
So in terms of, what's a coffered ceiling?
It's a ceiling that has shape and recessed elements to it. It has lighting, and it is defined by potentially wood.
I interrupted, please go on.
Overall, the floor, we call it an open plan. So the great room is open to the kitchen area and dining. It's open to the stair, which goes down to the basement and up to the upper level, which contains the bedrooms. We'll get to that in one moment. We have a half bath at the entrance here. And we also we move out of the dining room into a covered patio. And this is one of the elements
I know
that...
you're saying yes in that, but I don't think you're showing that up here. We're not seeing it.
You can,
I don't think you're using your utensil does
This
that.
is a little,
Yeah.
arrow here, it's a little dark and thin, but
Okay, I'm not seeing
I'll
it
help.
move.
Yeah, so this is the dining. And
Thank you.
the arrow is
That's all.
pointing, going out to the covered porch. Is that better? Make it bigger here. There. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to circle the covered porch, which is an exterior space.
and Mr. Weber, I would encourage you, by the way, to perhaps guide your witnesses. If this is material that is relevant to specific variances or conditions under consideration, we certainly want to hear in-depth testimony, but we may be offering too in-depth testimony on the interior of the structure that isn't in fact relevant to the application, if we want to conclude this evening.
Thank you, Mr.
Just offer
Chairman.
your guiding hand if you can on this.
One of the points was made that by utilizing the grade of the existing site, that, and by using the structures to manage that grade, you have a peculiar suitability of what's being proposed to this site. So that's the element.
That's what we're driving towards, okay.
That's correct,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman. So we were going to go into the patio and then out to the yard,
Okay.
and then show the grade up so that the board understands exactly the point of these townhomes.
Thank you.
Although there are two-family houses in a townhome style. So then if you could walk out to the porch or to the private yard,
Let's go back to the other.
is there another?
and I think you'll have to go to the landscape when we get at that point. Or will this work, Mr. Robinson?
Let's go to landscape, yes. Okay. Okay, so we'll stay on the same unit. Let's get it in
It'll
focus.
just take a second to refocus it.
Okay, so this would be the covered porch. Oops, I need to do this again. So sorry. This is the covered porch area. You would walk out into the patio, the private patio area for your unit. This would be the wall that borders your neighbor. And then you would walk up steps this direction to go to the garage. Right now, the garage doors are right here and right here.
So how many steps are implicated by getting from the garden up to the front of the garage?
They're large steps, so they're probably enough for 2 feet of, 2 steps per person. But in terms of the amount, you know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
So 12
A
large
dozen
steps, and that's part of the element that you've used to incorporate your architecture into the grade that exists on the site.
Correct.
And the vertical rise on those are? Vertical rise on those steps?
The rise wouldn't be more than 6 inches, 7 inches. So that's 84 inches.
Now, you've heard me indicate that the garages themselves are recommended by Ms. Anderson to be expanded from 38 feet width to 40 feet.
Correct.
And that'll provide for additional interior garage space?
Yes.
And with regard to the height of the garages, you're allowed an additional 3 feet above the 15 feet that's permitted if the garage peaks are designed to match the principal structure. But you're a little bit higher. You're at 18 on one of the garages and 22 on the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
That's because of the grade, the steep slope of the grade. We're not trying to match the house. We're putting the gables at the normal height of a gable of a garage.
And with regard to the attic, you have stairs that go up to the attic, but in terms of that attic space, and can we, yeah.
Oh, it's tapped, sorry.
It's okay.
And in terms of that attic space, you've been in discussions with Krista Anderson when she had queried as to whether or not you were creating additional floor area ratio with that attic. And you have provided her with this additional information so that she could be satisfied that the FAR is actually at 28.5.
That is correct. We put together this plan with hatch areas. The area that is above is 7 feet and higher is right here. Hello.
Just click it out real quick, sorry.
Is this area. So it's the area that's right at the gable. These are attics. These are not livable spaces. Perhaps an exercise bike or something is in this area, but it's not meant to be a sleeping room or any kind of living
I
space.
think you have one small window that was a design element.
Yeah, that's here.
So otherwise the attics have no windows.
Correct.
And then the covered porch, you understand that the covered porch cannot be enclosed. If it is enclosed, then it does contribute to the floor area ratio.
Correct.
But simply as a covered porch, it does not include the FAR.
Right. The covered porches are here and here.
And you also have them in the front, is correct.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. Here and
And
here.
those covered porches, while they do not contribute to floor area ratio, do contribute to building coverage. Is that correct?
They do. And I just want to note that this plan, the reason we have these dotted lines is because this was requested by the principal planner, Ms. Anderson, to clarify where our areas were.
Ms. Anderson's the zoning officer,
Yes.
not the planner,
Sorry.
of course.
Thank you for the correction.
The renowned zoning officer. I have nothing further of the architect, Mr. Chairman.
Questions, maybe let's start with our professionals first. Mr. Snekis, would you like to kick us off?
Yes, a few questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to, and I'm just trying to make sure all this pencils out as far as the FAR calculation. I noted that you have a revised set of drawings that's, I guess it's January 13th, 2023. That shows your latest tables, correct?
Yes.
Regarding the floor areas. They may be slightly different than I believe what Krista had at the time, if I'm not mistaken, due to the time at which she did her report. So I believe we're still at that same percentage, but I just wanted to have that confirmed, if that's something you're comfortable with in the variance calculation.
In terms of the same percentage around the 28.5?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. Just wanted to make sure that was the case. In addition to that, the garage changes. I would anticipate, I guess you're going 1 foot in each direction?
Correct.
Is that about right? Okay, so therefore, they're still not in the setbacks, and they just get a little bit closer to the common driveway in that configuration.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, here and here.
This may be a question for the engineer, but I was curious as to how high the walls are adjacent to the private outdoor areas. Is that something I guess the engineer may have in his testimony?
I think the landscape architect, if you're talking about the dividing wall for
Correct.
privacy?
Yeah, and again, just to make sure they're in compliance.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Size of the garages, they're now 40 by 20, I believe, right? And
Is that correct, Mr. Robbins?
38 by,
Right now, the 38 by 20 was being proposed as 40 by 20.
they will be 40, yes.
40 by 20, okay. In the ordinance, it has a limitation as to the size of accessory structures. I know what we're doing here is a use variance application, but I believe in the opening statement, you may not have touched on this. We had it in our review as to an issue of a variance. It had to do with the accessory building floor area, where it exceeds the maximum of 76 square feet for the garages. Obviously, you're now at a much larger size. I believe that should be subsumed in the overall discussion, unless you object.
No objection.
I believe Ms. Anderson also asked about what the basement uses were going to be for, and just to confirm that there would be no bedrooms down there. I believe they would be able to be used as bonus spaces for the building, because I believe there's also a shower, I'm sorry, not shower, but a bathroom down there.
That's correct. The applicant agrees that if the board approves the application, there would be no bedrooms in the basement.
No bedrooms, and I don't remember putting a bath down there or powder room.
I thought she had noted that.
I think
The plans do not indicate a bathroom.
If it becomes a requirement, we can look at it, but I don't think it's in our original plan.
We have,
go up the stairs, there's a half bath at the top of the stairs.
at the top of the stair,
At the top of the stairs, okay.
So we would just note that as a condition, that there's no bedrooms to be built in the basement.
Very good, Mr. Chairman. Correct.
Just getting to the design criteria of the ordinance, we had noted if you could just describe compliance with the design guidelines that are part of the appendices of the overall development regulations. One thing that I took a look at, and I heard your testimony with regard to the windows and the three-dimensionality to some of the building forms and detailing. But if you can address from just your architectural experience, sort of the harmony of these buildings with the surrounding homes within the area. Have you taken a look at those homes in the area? This might be a question for your planner, I'm not sure.
I think that having Mr. Robinson talk about the studies that he had done, not just the programmatic needs, not just the property, not just the DRO, but the character of the neighborhood as well, to the extent that any particular area, there's a number of different style homes in that area.
Yeah, and I think that bringing in, as I testified, the gables that are focused toward the street bring very residential forms and characters to a neighborhood. The front porches, articulating the same material in different techniques, where we have clapboard siding, and then we have panelized this area here. Oh, here it goes again. The house on the right, this one, you know, it is not clapboard. It's fiber cement panels and trim, which is the same product. I brought samples of it here. It's just treating detail in a different way, and we see this material and this form on form in other architectural residential buildings in Summit.
And I think if Mr. Snickis, I also think that one of the questions was the massing and the size of the structure as well. So Mr. Robinson, if you can continue to respond to the question of Mr. Snickis with regard to massing and how this relates to massing in terms of the area.
In my professional opinion, I think it's very similar to massing. This structure, which is the one we're looking at, is containing unit C and D. It appears to be one structure. One prominent entrance on the front, and another entrance which is hidden around the corner to make it appear like it's a single-family home. And then the dwellings that are west of this site, share similar scale and height of what we're proposing here as well.
Okay. One of the last things I had with regard to the architecture was the roofs themselves. I recognize your roof pitches are greater than the 6 on 12. Is that about right?
That's right.
Okay. And also the overhangs or the soffits for the roof. Can you describe their consistency? I know the Historic Preservation Commission gave a report to the board recognizing the materials and the detailing you had in the building. One of the things I was noting, though, it looks like some of the soffits are rather small, or if you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I would have to.
What I mean by soffits is where the roof line meets the side of the wall.
I would have to agree with your statement there as well, and it's something we could certainly look at.
Well, let's expand so that the board can follow what the discussion is about, talking about the roof line and the soffit underneath the roof and how it interacts with the side.
So for example, the distance, the overhang of this gable and on the sides here.
I'll defer to the board if the board feels that's important to take a look at. But yeah, that's something that's recognized and recommended in the design criteria of our ordinance.
How would you address that concern if the board believed that was a concern worth addressing, Mr. Robinson?
Well, I mean, we would look at expanding that roof line.
That would create a, more visual, more...
It would give a shadow line.
Shadow line?
Yeah, it would create a space that, it would enhance the character.
Are there standards in the DRO for that?
No specific dimensions. It just shows certain sizes or visual representations of those soffits. So they give a little bit more dimensionality to the roof line. Because I don't know if you heard me talk about this before, the roof acts as sort of a hat on a building, giving that upper dimension, and also helps to scale the building as well.
In defense of your current design, why did you choose to configure these soffits as you did?
We were trying to contain the structures as tight as possible, to make them feel as uniform. That overhang of a rake board on the side of a structure is just a different approach. We can certainly look at that.
What's a rake board?
The rake board is a trim that goes up the side of a gable and back down. Right now we have about a 6-inch dimension from the edge of the roof at the rake trim to the side of the house. And that could be perhaps extended another 6 inches.
So you think that among all the recommendations and observations that the board's planner has made, you would be inclined to look at extending the rake board and still stay within a compact design, but still provide that additional depth on that one side?
Certainly.
Andy captured all the detail in the resolution notes, so we look forward to reviewing that. But did anyone have a particularly strong feeling about the soffits on the dais? Scott, how do you feel about these soffits? Come on.
I think extremely deep soffits are a pretty antiquated approach to architecture, and this is very much contemporary approach. So I don't think we're trying to absolutely replicate the past. So I think this is fitting with contemporary home design, and it makes all the sense in the world.
Any other feelings about the soffits?
Oh, why not?
We're here.
I
Let's
mean,
dig deep, like
I was going to
soffits
say,
here,
to me, this reads as a contemporary nod to an historic house. And it isn't, as Mr. Leggett suggested, it's not pretending to be a reproduction of a house. So I looked at it and I was not offended.
You've done something there.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we'll press the issue no further then. Thank you for considering.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Robinson, you'd like to draw attention to, or Mr. Sneckis left on your list?
That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Dee, anything for the architect?
I don't know if this is for the architect, but I was curious about the proposed site lighting, so tell me if somebody else is to testify.
Civil engineer.
Okay.
Is there any floor area ratio attributed to the garage?
I don't believe it is, although there may be a portion of it.
Portion.
Because you're allowed 24 by 24 as your credit, and then anything that exceeds that is included. So I believe there is that portion that's been included.
Mhm.
Is that correct, Mr.
That's
Robinson?
correct.
I believe that's not counted in the 22% that you indicated before. I think
22%.
the amount that Krista came up with, right,
The 28.
28%, sorry. 28%.
That's what I
I believe
was,
it's in addition to that 28%.
Right, you just added that tonight.
Right, so if you remove the 576 square feet from the overall 20 by 40s, you need to add in that square footage in the total FAR.
I believe that can we bring up Ms. Anderson's report?
Is that where you're going?
with the expansion of 1 foot, or, well, 2 feet for each,
As well.
I want to see if it's adding to that floor area ratio figure, because I know we were talking about the 28.5.
I have a little bit more clarification on the dimensions of the garage, though, that
You did.
we might want to loop into this conversation.
Okay. You want to go there first?
It's just
Let's
the
address
additional
this. Looks like a flurry of activities
2 feet.
occurring. Let's get through this first question.
Do you need to add that part in for the additional, since you're going 38 to 40 feet, that's what he does.
Yeah, but that, he included that.
Krista calculated just
Oh,
the
but
building
that's
itself,
increases
it was
in 1 foot.
28.62. When you factor in 576 square feet credit for each one of the garages, and have
How
excess
much
square
of the,
footage,
how
you
much
have to add into the
percentage of that increase?
Mr. Weber, if it'd be helpful, we've been here for an hour and 15 minutes. We could take a few minutes recess and you can collect your thoughts on the FAR calculation.
Very good, Mr. Chairman.
Let's do
You know
that.
what, it might be helpful if I ask my question
Then, yeah, ask your
first,
question.
and then you could, because you might want
Then
to
we
have
can
some
break.
conversation about this as well. My understanding from the beginning of your presentation is that you were increasing the interior width dimension of each garage from 18 to 20. So if that's correct, the entire width of the garage, exterior width, can't be 40. It has to be 20 plus 20 plus the width of the 2 exterior walls plus the interior wall. So you're probably approaching closer to like 41 and a half.
We're not going to do that, Board Member Sager. We're going to keep it at 40. Because that's what
Okay,
he
so,
said. And
so
then
the interior width is not 20.
It'll be less.
It is going to be less.
It'll still be less, but it'll be more than what's proposed with the 38. So
Okay.
it'll provide, so we
Right,
may
so-
still need that
So we need to know
variance.
that number, because we need to talk about that number.
Very good.
All right, let's take a break, stretch our legs, and do some FAR calculations.
Thank you.
Is that the 15 plugs a day? Is that the 15 plugs a day, shotgun?
Yeah, yeah. Going to the grocery store to be dangerous.
All right, 5 minutes have elapsed.
Okay.
Enlighten us as to all things FAR, Mr. Weber.
Okay.
The discussion is when looking at the report of Ms. Anderson, which we lost the signal in that break. Yes, there we are. So if we look at paragraph 4, for the proposed FAR of 28.62, 25% maximum, the calculation of FAR does not include the required garages. Correct. So you don't include required garages. In the R15 zone, you're required to have a garage, 2-car garage, for each dwelling unit. So the question is, and we cannot answer it, is then you get that credit of 576, 24 by 24, for each of the 4 garages. That may be the interpretation, that may be what Krista Anderson has come to. We do not see her saying that. That's my reading. So what we're saying is, and Mr. Snickus and I agree with this one, and I hate to disagree with Ms. Anderson. Last time I disagreed, I was proven wrong, is that you get a credit of the 576 for each building. So for each individual garage building, there's a credit of 576. So when you add in the expanded area from 38 to 40, you come up with 31.4% FAR.
Mr. Snikes, could this calculus also be interpreted to offer a credit for each of the dwelling units, not just the dwelling structures?
That's possible, except that what I'm of the opinion of is that this is supposed to be for a single-family zone. So it's only anticipating that 576.
This could be characterized as a more conservative approach.
Right. And so therefore, I'm of the opinion that I think we can allow for 576 for each garage. And that any area above and beyond that is something that needs to be added to the FAR.
Procedurally, do we run any risk of misreading the great wisdom in Krista Anderson's mind and totally bungling this exercise?
So I'm looking at the definition of floor area, which is where that 576 figure comes from.
Mhm.
It's excludes the area of the required garage, and then in parentheses, for 1-car garages equals 288 square feet, and 2-car garages equals 576 square feet, or the existing garage, whichever is less. So I think I agree with Ed's interpretation there. We're talking about, required garages. In this case, each building would exclude 576 square feet for a total of whatever that times 2 is.
Yeah, that's where they've done the math and they've come up with the 31.4%.
So I think that's the way
It's defensible?
we are interpreting it. I think it would make the most sense to proceed with that figure in mind. If it does wind up that the applicants can argue that it should be less than 31.4, we can ultimately reduce that in the resolution, but the board should consider 31.4
As the upper limit.
Working figure for tonight.
Any member of the board have an objection to that mental math? No? Okay. All right. Let's proceed then. Thank you, Mr. Snikes. Thank you, Mr. Weber.
I have nothing further, Mr. Robinson.
Okay.
Can I ask the interior dimensions of the garage? I know we were talking before the break, 40 feet, but what's going to be the practical usable space in the garage?
Let's pull it up here.
So if we go to paragraph, I was going to say stay on paragraph 5 of Ms. Anderson's report. And if we can highlight paragraph 5. So this would be the point Board Member Sager had said, it's not just the 40 feet, it's plus the width of the exterior walls and interior separation wall. But at this point, I've spoken to the applicant, spoken to the architect, and the width going from 38 to 40 provides additional maneuverability. Does it achieve the elimination of the variance or the size of the interior space? No, but it does achieve more maneuverability without now really expanding the building coverage and lot coverage and floor area ratio dramatically.
I'm concerned with, practical usability. And, we see a lot of instances where people have a two-car garage. It's maybe on the narrow side, and with modern vehicles, they can be fairly substantial. And it winds up becoming a one-car garage plus ample storage unit, and a vehicle gets parked outside. So I would like to understand the exact dimensions.
Very good.
My plans.
I got 21 across. It's like just enough.
Yeah, this is
8 inches for the wall.
Dave Robinson. My plan.
Kind of caught my eye.
The garages are 22 feet deep, so the interior would be 21 feet deep, and then the width, which is now going to be...
Screen not working? There we go.
You got it? Yeah, right now it's 18 feet 8 inches, and we're adding a foot in each direction, so it's 19 feet.
Now, when you're
8
saying
inches.
the 18 feet, 8 inches, that looks like it's to the exterior wall.
Yes.
Correct.
So what's the interior dimension?
So that would be 18, let's just say the wall's 6 inches thick. So 18.2, plus the additional foot, 19.2.
And the ordinance is looking for a minimum interior floor area of 20 by 20 feet for a two-car garage. So to get to that 20 interior space, how much wider would the entire structure have to be beyond the 38 feet? Does it work at 40?
2 more feet.
20 inches more.
Yeah, 10 and 10.
Let me ask
What
you,
would the overall exterior dimension of the individual garage be?
39.8, no, 40, 41.8.
I'm asking you.
I had 41.8.
So it'd be 41.8.
Yeah.
And in looking at your site plan, can we go back to the site plan of the architect? And if you could scroll in on the garages, especially with regard to the side yard. So at this point, you have the side lot line and the setback. So you have a setback that's permitted,
Correct.
correct? And then, how much space do you have leaving the steps there in order to accommodate the 3.2 feet?
I believe it's 6 to 7 feet available.
You could cheat more to the west, because you have,
But you have a side yard. We're not going to violate the side yard.
Correct.
No, not doing it.
why do you need a two-car wide drive aisle on the driveway? 4 units.
Good question.
So then and so you have a little bit more space next to the drive aisle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the 6 feet though, Mr. Robinson.
Right here.
Mr. Robinson, how wide are your steps?
We believe that they're 36 inches.
I think you have to remember, you're going to have snow at some times, both in the driveway, you're going to have clear snow. It's not always going to be 2 cars wide. You're going to have snow on these steps. You need to have space for snow to be removed.
Well, this will be a condominium form of ownership, and I expect that Mr. Costera will have within the bylaws the requirement that it be immediately removed, so it wouldn't be stored there. And if the board approves the application, that would be a condition of approval.
Mr. Robbins, do you have to push the garage exterior walls 1'10" in each direction to achieve the 20-foot interior rear?
You want to go back to the interior design?
I think so.
But we have
Because
flexibility.
If that's the case, then is it your testimony then that would be within the setback lines?
I believe it would be.
Yep. I think you're okay.
So we can stay within the setback and expand the interior
Mhm.
garage width to 20 feet.
Correct.
Does it affect any other calculations? Affect any other calculations?
It will affect the floor area ratio. So instead of the 31.4, and I know right now that the engineer is running those numbers. So
And the building coverage.
and building coverage and lot coverage. No, not lot coverage, but building coverage certainly.
So will there be limitations on how many vehicles each of these tenants or residents can own and use on this property, and how and where they will store their vehicles? If there's a car that's not in the garage, that is parked in front of the garage doors, is there enough circulation room for other cars to come around it and park, pull into their garage or pull out of their garage and kind of maneuver around cars that are parked in this like blacktop area outside of the garage, a neighbor parked in front of their garage doors?
With regard to the first question, there is a limitation in the bylaws, 2 cars per unit. That would be a condition of approval. With regard to the maneuverability of the 28 feet, and this is the same point that Ms. Anderson had, recognize that you have a 24-foot aisle in your parking lots. That's your typical standard. So there is that ability to maneuver. Is it something that you want to have there?
24, say that again?
When you're in a parking lot or a parking garage, you need 12 feet in each direction to travel. And so when you're parking, typically that's enough to get in and out of the spaces. 24 feet total, thinking about cars traveling in both directions.
But you're not going to anybody
Okay,
else's
but-
property. You're pulling in, you're going to the right only to your
So
own.
this is
Well,
more
to the
than-
left, you're only going to your own.
Sorry.
Would this be better covered with the civil engineer? Sorry, just to focus the testimony, we're with the architect at the moment.
Yeah.
Would this better be covered, Mr. Weber, with the civil engineer?
Very good, Mr. Chairman. I also have confirmed with Mr. Costera that if the board approves the application, that the bylaws would include a condition that you could not park your car except in the garage. So he's worked with this with his other properties, the one on Summit and Morris by the middle school, and that has been something that they've enforced, and that has worked.
Okay. Excellent. Any other questions for the, yes, you may proceed.
There's been reference to bylaws as if they're already written. Can they be produced to the board for its review?
If the board approves the application, putting together a condominium includes the master deed, the filing documents, the significant.
Well,
the
are you
public
testifying,
ed-
are
take a
you
lot of
representing
work
that they're
and
not
hours.
complete?
No, they're not.
You've
have
been
not.
saying that they are. I mean, you've been saying the bylaws include, the bylaws this. Do the bylaws include it? They have to exist. If they're not, you're going to have to say that you're anticipating putting it in.
Joe,
Correct.
I think he's been representing the bylaws will include as conditions. He hasn't represented
I've been
anything
pretty clear on
like
what
that.
I'm hearing.
Very good,
Okay.
Mr. Vice Chairman. They do not exist yet. Putting them together with the master deed and the other documents necessary to conform with PREDFA is a significant undertaking.
Would would the bylaws be able to be amended by the condominium owners after all the units have closed? And if so, under what conditions are you contemplating?
It could be amended, but there would have to be a condition, therefore, that they would have to resort back to the Board of Adjustment to do that. So it would have to have a specific condition within those bylaws to that nature.
But only as it reflects upon the particular clauses by, the specific bylaws we've referenced and include as a condition of the application.
Correct.
We wouldn't ask any amendment to the bylaws to come before the zoning board.
No.
I'm not interested in that.
No, we're not.
Thank you. Right.
No dog over 25 pounds.
Yeah. That's right. Okay.
I was just gonna ask where the dog run was.
Yeah.
I do have what I hope is a really simple question. When you were referring to the exterior materials, is that what I would think of as hardy plank?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have samples here, by the way. so.
That's,
Other questions for the architect?
One more.
Yep.
And this might be a long one, so I apologize. So we've got a lot of 27,000 feet. 15,000 square feet is in the R15 zone, standard lot. And we're triggering a number of variances. And I just sort of want to understand, in your development of these plans, did you contemplate alternative plans that could have minimized these variances? Because, you know, what caught my eye when I was initially looking at this application was this is just a lot of variances.
When we were retained to look at the project, look at the site, we didn't know what we were planning at the beginning. It was through our discussions with my client was to develop 4 units. So we focused on the 4 units.
And in terms of your recognition of what is feasible for the site, you also focus, if I'm not mistaken, on the townhome style and having the private courtyards and the garages, working with the grade.
Yeah, and we looked at circulating around the site, and it was just a lot of coverage. And we felt that simply dividing it in half and moving it to the side, single circulation route, was the most feasible.
Look, it's an attractive site. You're just making more than full use of it according to the bulk requirements.
Any questions from the board or the architect? Any questions from the interested public? I get a couple questions about some of the calculations, so we're deep in it. So come forward and state again your name and address just for the record, please.
Ben Bowen, 10 Hillview Terrace. And my question for Mr. Robinson is, you didn't show us any renderings or schemes of the garages. Could you show us some and then show us specifically where the variances, the 22-foot and the 17-foot are triggered? Is the roof height? And also comment on the materials of the garage and the roof of the garage.
Yes. So in plan, the garages are here. We looked at these. And then elevations, we could see, you know, from the driveway, this is the dwelling unit A.
Is that to the east or to the west?
It's to the west, and we're looking toward the east, noting the garage with a 15-foot high ridge.
Can you expand a little bit more and just focus on the garage, and then you can always bring it back out. But let's see the numbers.
You can see the dimensions, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So at the driveway apron into the garage, we have a 15-foot 6-inch ridge to the gable with an average height of 12-foot 6 to the average dimension of the roof. The materials are similar to the dwelling, which are fiber cement siding. We are also including natural stone veneer at the area of the garage that's exposed below the siding. And then the other building.
So on that elevation, am I reading it right? The floor of the garage is approximately equal to the second floor of the house.
That is correct. approximately.
Mr. Bowen, would you mind coming forward just so we can capture your questions on the microphone? Thank you.
And the white here, is that fill? Is that what that?
That's Phil.
That's fill? Okay.
Yeah.
Just assisting with the, okay.
So then the other side, again, treating
Well,
the,
before you leave, let's just go back, we were talking about the height variance. So when you're looking at the height variance, the side by the house is where you have the height that exceeds that which is permitted, is that correct?
that's correct. That's in the private courtyard.
So seen from the property of the Bowens, the height of the garage would be consistent with the established DRO?
That is correct.
And what's the setback from the garage to the rear lot line?
Use your finger.
Let's go back to the plan. I don't know if it's on this one here. We do not have a dimension directly, but we can add these dimensions up.
Oh, what is it?
You got it?
61.2.
61 feet, 2 inches from the property line to the back of the garage.
Then let's look at the other garage now for the Bowens.
Okay. Sorry. And this is the garage as if we're standing in the public school yard, the property, looking west.
That's Park Department.
Parks Department property. Where, again, the apron, from the dimension from the apron of where you enter the garage to the ridge of the garage is 15 foot 6 inches. And then the larger height is the opposite side, which is inside the private courtyard.
And that's due to the fall in grade at that point?
That's correct. I would just like to make a comment on the fill, because it is shown on the architectural plan. It would be better defined on the engineering plan, because I'm not sure if there is actually fill there or not. There may not be. But the civil engineer can attest to whether that's fill or not fill.
Mr. Bowen, any other questions for the architect?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll hear from your next witness then, Mr. Weber.
I would ask that Mr. Fred Stewart be called to the stand to be sworn in to give testimony in this matter.
Extensive resolution drafting here.
If you could raise your right hand, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And please state your name and spell your last name.
Fred Stewart, S-T-E-W-A-R-T, professional engineer and land surveyor.
Thank you. Can you briefly describe your background experience in 3 boards before recently?
Oh, sure. I appeared before many boards in northern New Jersey, so, including this one a few years back. I've been practicing in the field of engineering and surveying since 1986. Been in my own business since the year 2000. Received my Bachelor's of Science from NJIT in 1996. 1999, I was licensed by the state of New Jersey as an engineer. 1991, I was licensed by the state of New Jersey as a surveyor. Received a certificate in surveying from County College of Morris in 1986.
And license is still in good standing, I imagine?
Yes, it is.
Any questions from the board?
No questions. We'll accept your credentials.
Thank
you.
you.
Proceed, Mr. Weber.
Mr. Stewart, are you familiar with the application that's pending before the board? And if so, how did you achieve that familiarity?
Yes, I am. I was contracted by the applicant to perform a survey and site plan for this project.
And you're familiar with the development regulations ordinance of the City of Summit and the City of Summit itself?
Yes, I am.
And how did you achieve that familiarity?
I've done numerous projects throughout Summit. The last, I can remember, say, 3 major ones, such as applicant's former application, and also I've done, I think, 2 habitat projects in the Summit as well.
And in connection with the application, as a civil engineer, have you prepared a site plan as part of this application? And if so, can you bring that up on the screen?
Yes, I did, and I think this is actually the architect's plan. If you want to just go to my plan, that's all right. There we go. Yep, and that's on the screen right now.
And would you describe for the board what's proposed in connection with the application?
Sure, most definitely. That would go to my sheet 2. That would be the proposal. And as one can see,
No, before you go to the proposal, let's go back to the existing.
okay. This would be the existing conditions on the site. And within,
What's on the site now?
okay, within the site, there is a 1.5-story dwelling, and attached to that dwelling is a 1-story office area. As you can see, it basically takes up basically most of the building setback area from side to side. The building is quite large side to side, but as far as the depth goes, it's probably only about 35 feet, 40 feet on average in depth. In front of that is a parking area for that office area. It consists of approximately 7 stalls. It's a paved area. And then there's the access drive that goes out to Springfield Ave.
How wide is that access drive?
It's about 13, 14 feet wide.
And in connection with the management of the grade, does the existing structure have a retaining wall?
Yes, it does. The retaining wall is directly behind the house. It's probably about 10 feet off the back of the home. It goes for mainly along the residential side or portion of the building, and then from there it goes to a steep slope from where that wall, if it was projected out, down to the 1-story addition or office area.
And what's the stormwater management that exists on the site now?
There isn't any. Right now, the water flow just goes down towards Springfield Ave and is actually captured by the existing catch basins located, try and highlight this here. Right here are 2 existing catch basins. That actually captured a runoff coming from the site directly after it enters the gutter line of Springfield from the driveway.
And now, can you go to the proposed site plan? And I interrupted, but could you now describe what's proposed?
Sure. This consists of the 2 buildings and the 2 garage areas, which are placed on the property. We actually placed these homes in line with the adjoining homes. As you can see, this one right here is at 39.1 feet back. We're at 35.5 feet back. So we do keep that same streetscape as the architect spoke to earlier. So in keeping the homes towards the front, sets a nice line of the dwellings along the roadway. And then we actually place the driveway between the homes. It's a common driveway. And again, figuring a common driveway would be better than having 2 separate driveways, which would basically add more impervious cover to the site because we're going to have 2 access points, 2 driveways. So we kept it as one common driveway between the 2 buildings. And as you go up, basically go up from Springfield Ave towards the back of the property, that's where we place the garages behind the homes. Again, those are consists of 4 garages, or basically 2 buildings with 2 garages each, 1 for each unit. And we basically have a rear entry into the back of the garages for each unit, right in this area here. We do have a depth of 28 feet from the face of the garage to the curb line. Beyond the curb line is an additional 3 feet, which could act as a little buffer area or an overhang. If you actually back out of the garage, you can actually overhang that curb line, and then you can actually back out the garage and proceed out head-on towards Springfield Ave. Now, between the garage and the building itself, or the dwelling, we do have 2 areas of paver patios, permeable paver patios. And as you'll see from the next witness, we actually show this as an entire area being covered by permeable pavers. The landscape plan does reduce that area slightly. It actually brings them in, and you'll see that from the next witness. So my areas for the permeable pavers is actually a little bit more on the conservative note, so it's a little bit larger than what would be expected once we do the landscaping.
But the permeable pavers are included in lot coverage calculations.
Yes, they are, and that's my point. So basically, the lot coverage calculations will be slightly extended beyond what we're showing based off the landscape plan. Just minor. Okay? Now, if I may, just go back to my existing conditions plan, because I'd like to continue on the grading of the site. As you can see, the slope of the property, based on contours, is fairly steep. If you go from the front area of the property, which would be the southwest corner, to say the same direction the contours are going, which would be in this direction here, that's approximately a 16% grade on average over the entire property. Now, as you can see, there are certain areas that are a little bit steeper, such as behind the office building and in front of the dwelling. Now, when this was graded off originally, these slopes were actually increased because of construction on the property. This, from the residential dwelling area, that area was actually filled. This area was actually cut to accommodate the construction of the buildings, which basically those slopes were man-made. That's what I'm trying to get at with that. To the rear of the home, again, you have that block wall right in that section there. That's approximately a 5-foot block wall, I believe, which does accommodate some of the grade between the house and the slope behind it, which is this area right in here, which is generally a small area. It's about 10 feet, and that's about it. Leaves very little area for any type of recreation behind the home. So I'll go down to the grading of the site.
Well, before you leave the proposal.
Sure.
That also shows your stormwater management system, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, which is also on the grading plan as well, yes.
So when you look, if you want to go to grading then,
Yep, it shows all the structures, actually. There we go. So basically, our stormwater management, we are proposing 3 dry wells in front of each building, right in this section here. And we do have some other infrastructure as well. We do have a catch basin up in the corner of the parking area, which is connected to a manhole as you come down alongside the home, and then directly ties into the county inlet located in Springfield Ave. The dry well systems themselves are collecting the roof runoff from the homes and also from the garages, and we based our calculations are based on the sizing of those dry wells are based on the roof area of those structures.
do you have additional capacity within the dry well system to manage any increase in building coverage due to the proposed increased garage size?
I will see if we have the capacity, and I believe we do. It's basically a simple calculation on my detail sheet that we'll just have to expand on it, and it's really a minimal amount of area. We can simply expand the dry well areas themselves, because this is the tank itself is a circular area, and then the square area around that tank is actually a gravel area. So I'm sure if we just expand the gravel slightly, that will be able to accommodate the expansion of the garage. We also have a trench grate that's located along the front of the driveway, right in this section here, which is collecting any runoff coming from the driveway and directing that into, again, the county system right here. That will be tied directly to that. That will make sure that any flow coming from the property is captured before it runs off into the gutter line of Springfield Ave as it does now. It's actually creating a better situation than what's there now as far as the drainage system goes.
And in terms of the garage, discussions have been made or held with regard to expanding it and what effect that would have on the side yard setback. Can you draw the board's attention to that?
Sure. I'll just use this as an example over here. Let me go to my layout plan, which is on sheet 2. There we go. That offset right here is 20.9 feet, which is about 20 feet 11 inches. The steps are about 36 inches. So if we were to expand the garage that extra 2.5 feet, I believe it was, I just went to a 42-foot dimension, to be honest with you, from the 38 originally. So if we expand, say, 2.5 feet on that side and 1.5 feet on the driveway side, this offset would then be decreased down by 2.5 feet. So that would equate to 18.4 feet would be this offset.
And what's the side yard requirement in the R15 zone?
That would be 15 feet. 15 foot.
what about on the eastern side? Again, the 20 feet,
20.9 feet. Yep, same situation there. We'd go down to 18.4 feet.
One of the questions that was raised was, what about snow storage? Understanding that the representation has been made that if the board approves the application, that the snow was to be removed from the site.
Yeah, snow could be removed from the site if it becomes in such a quantity that it's too, not manageable. That will be taken on by the association. As far as the driveway width, it is at 18 feet, which does allow for passage of 2 vehicles. If somebody's coming off of Springfield and somebody's leaving, nobody has to back out, basically.
Well, it's 18 feet. If you can go to, and I'm looking at sheet 205, but if I look further down, I think it goes to 24 feet as it enters Springfield Avenue.
That's correct. It goes to 24 feet because that's the county standard. That's what we're required to do at Springfield Ave.
And what does that permit in terms of the maneuverability, accessing, or egressing from the site?
Oh, it's a very safe maneuver. Most of your aisles within shopping centers and the like, and entrances onto roadways are at 24 feet. So it's a very safe maneuver for somebody to be stopped there waiting to exit the driveway. Somebody can simply turn in as well.
So does the 24 feet supersede the city requirements here?
It has to. It's a county roadway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How should we think about visitor use of parking, for example, for these kind of small condominium units?
Well, yeah, I'd like to talk about that as far as the parking stalls go. Based on your ordinance, 8 are required. We have 8, 2 for each garage. As far as residential site improvement standards, that's also at 8. From what I understand, the residential site improvement standards does take into account this type of situation where it does have in that variable room for visitors. It's a townhouse style setup, so they probably figure like 1.6 vehicles per unit, and if someone's visiting, they allow for an extra stall.
Are you also aware, Mr. Stewart, that there's on-street parking that's available?
Yes, there is.
And the public property that's to the east would have on-street parking available to it as well?
I believe it does extend that far up, yes.
And there's a sidewalk in front of the properties that runs along Springfield Avenue?
Yes, there is.
You also have a decorative wall that's shown.
Yes, there's a decorative wall there that's approximately 3 feet in height. That's just for decoration purposes, just to add some, I guess, character or flavor to the front of the homes.
And that's similar to the walls that extend to the west on the neighboring properties?
Yes, it is.
With regard to the site lighting, do you have a sheet that addresses that?
No, we do not. Basically, the site lighting is just residential in nature. Depicted on the architect's plans would be where they are located. Basically, on the homes themselves, from what I understand, they are canopy lighting. They're up within the canopy or overhang above the doorways. As far as the garages go, same thing. Above the doorways, of each doorway, there is a canopy light. As far as landscape lighting, we are proposing some landscape lights basically along the pathways or walkways, such as in the stairways, like in this area here. Might have 2 or 3 low voltage lights just to illuminate the stairs enough so you can watch where you're going, basically, and down into the back of the homes.
But that's not shown on any particular plan at this point?
It's actually shown on the landscape plan, and the lights for the homes and the garages are shown on the architect's plans.
And could we bring up the architectural plans so that we can see where those lights are as they pertain to the architecture, and then bring up the landscape plan so we can see where the lights are as they pertain to the site?
This is Dave Robinson, architect. Just quickly identifying where in the garage we have 2 lights over each overhang door. So there's a total of 4, and it is light fixture type B, which is the gooseneck type light fixture here. And then the other fixture, which is light fixture type A, which is these type of light fixtures here, is at the front entries. And they are located, let's use this clean plan. One at the entrance, which is underneath a roof.
Mr. Robinson, can you use the pointer so that we can actually have that highlighted, please?
Okay, so this is light A, which is concealed underneath a ceiling. And this one is also on the porch at the front door. And then we have them also on the private covered patios in the back.
And then you had shown them on the garage, if we can go back to that, and then show the board exactly where the lights are with regard to the garage.
This is the only architectural lighting right here.
And what type of light is that?
This is type B, which is this one. It's a down pendant light that is attached to the wall. And then the lights...
It's attached to the wall of the garage.
The wall of the garage, yes. And then the other pendant fixture is attached to the ceiling at the porches and covered porches.
With regard to the light that's on the garages, that will be shielded so that the light source would not be visible from the residential properties behind it?
That is correct. No glare from that fixture.
Thank you.
No glare and no spillage, I presume.
Correct.
And then if we could pull up the landscaping plan, please?
Thank goodness Samantha's here tonight.
Oh, yes.
Yes, thank you. Hard work.
It's a team.
There we go. Okay.
And you indicated that this shows the pedestrian lighting?
Yes, I believe that this here is the landscape lighting shown on the plan for the steps themselves.
And the landscape architect will be able to describe the type of
Yep.
fixtures
More there, yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
that
There
are
we go.
proposed with regard to that landscape lighting.
Yes.
Is there lighting on the other side of the garage as well? Are there stairs to the left and the right respectively?
There's one.
And those two.
Here's two more, yep. Thank you.
And nothing to the left of the proposed garage, there's no lighting that's proposed to
Is
the
that
left of the
green one
garage?
a light? Is that a light?
Ah, the green.
There they are, right there, yes.
Very good.
Okay. Now, it would illuminate the walkways just enough, and it's just low voltage, ground lighting, basically.
And that's sufficient for the grade change and the full length of the stairs, those two light fixtures there noted on the plans?
We'll make sure they are, yes.
There might be little lights on the
Yeah.
Looks like there are a couple little lights on the walls as
On
well,
each
the
wall,
divider walls between each.
Just to give some illumination in the courtyard area. And as I mentioned before, basically with the brick paver area, that's the area I calculated, and this is the area that's getting cut back with landscaping. So I'm slightly above the actual impervious coverage calculation.
So you've designed the stormwater management system to accommodate the roof runoff from the garage and the home, and then you're directing the runoff from the paved area directly to the city system,
That's correct, the county system, yes.
county system.
Yep.
Have you had an opportunity to review the report of Dipti Sheth, the board's engineer?
Yes, I have.
Can we bring that up?
The report?
Yes.
Yes, please. Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if Ms. Sheth wishes to go through her report with,
It's your good work. Would you like to lead us
Mr.
through
Stewart?
your particular points of concern or question?
Yeah, I could do that.
That'd be great. Let's do it. They're ready for you.
Okay.
Should we make it larger and go paragraph by paragraph?
I can jump to the points that
All right.
he may have not already addressed and
That'd be
to
helpful.
keep it, you know, flowing here.
Thank you.
In general, the site plan application document has numbers regarding lot area and the lot size that are different from the plan. So on a survey, you know, because the survey was provided by your company also, the area plot is 27,491.7 square feet. So just want to make sure the plans show the correct building coverage numbers, lot coverage numbers, and the area plot.
Yeah, I have on the zoning schedules 27,691.7. Okay?
Which one's correct?
27,691.7.
The site plan application just has different numbers and
Okay.
that's to be noted.
Thank you.
The other thing I want to make a mention of, just to the board, that our letter referenced previous architectural plans. Ed had pointed out that revised plans were from January 13, 2023. I do not believe that will affect today's engineering testimony. All right. So question, the current survey, does it show the current conditions?
Yes, it does.
So the driveway is, just to make sure that the driveway variance will be required still, even though you have 24 feet at Springfield Avenue, but as you go up, you have 18 feet. So for this R15 zone, you will still require driveway variance, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Can I build on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is it necessary, given there's only 4 units, for you to have an 18-foot driveway?
Typically, when we do projects similar to this, we do have an 18-foot wide access drive. Most of the comments that we receive back are basically for emergency access situation. I mean, we can diminish it. I don't think there's a reason to. It does give us some area too, like snow removal. I think someone brought that up earlier.
You have a substantial lot coverage accession here, and that seems like a place where you could make up some ground there.
Yes, I do believe even when I've been before Summit, the requirement was 18-foot would be basically, in a situation like this, we would have like to see 18-foot wide, just for this reason, for two-way access in and out.
Does it offer substantially improved or substantially safer ingress and egress for vehicles, improved sight lines? I heard snow removal was one reason. Wow us with the reasons why 18 feet is appropriate for this particular.
Well, I'm starting to lean toward Board Member Mullen's point of view, looking at that. When we look at the design, if it's possible to have the narrower driveway, then you can have a sidewalk along the side of the structures. So what you have right now are people parking their car, going to the garage, and then going into their homes through their private yard.
Through the private yard, yes.
When we look at your plan of L2 or 205, which has this driveway width,
Which one? Oh, he's either one. This one. feet.
Thank you. I don't want to make everybody dizzy with the scrolling every time,
I know.
so.
there's the, if we just move the diagram up so we can see the 18 feet. So we see the 18 feet, and we see that there's 20.7 between the structures and 22.6. While that's recognized, we get additional light, air, and open space there. To the extent that you had a sidewalk going around the bump out of the chimney, it would just provide that additional access. So what's the minimum we could, also reducing lot coverage, what's the minimum that we could go with?
A sidewalk doesn't reduce your lot coverage, does it?
Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry, Board Member Sager, yes it does. We try and count everything.
That's correct.
A sidewalk?
Yeah,
It doesn't reduce it.
Does not.
Doesn't reduce it, no.
Well, wasn't that your point?
Yeah.
Well, we could certainly avoid, we could just have grass, but you still have a pedestrian walk around that.
That would certainly be an improvement. I mean, of course, to your point, I would want to get the fire department's concurrence that that wouldn't be an issue of having a reduced drive aisle.
your ordinance does state, I believe, 12 foot
Okay.
for a width like this, so I would assume that your fire department would be acceptable to that.
You would voice the safety concern, that I just want to speak to
Yeah,
that.
it is a safety concern just from an ingress egress standpoint, having a conflict in the middle of the driveway. Someone's gonna have to back up, okay, if we went to 12 feet.
But you do have the 24 feet at the apron.
Exactly.
That's the county requirement.
So if someone's coming down, they could stop at that 24 feet, somebody can come down, and the next person can go up, yes, that could happen. So it could be manageable, like I said, it's only 4 units. I don't see it being an issue, but typically 18 foot is the width that most places would like to see on a driveway of similar in nature, this length of a driveway. It's not like it's only 30 feet long, it is, geez, from a standpoint, it's probably about 80 feet long. So it could be manageable, yes, if it went down, reduced width.
What's the amount of square footage that you're over total lot coverage?
Oh, I would have to take a look at that, which would be in my zone area. Wait for it to catch up here.
So I think we're talking about a 500 to 600 square foot reduction in lot coverage.
Yep.
If we go down to 12, I'm thinking maybe just giving a little bit more, leaving it from 18, go down to 16, just to provide that additional area.
That's
And
300.
someone will just have to walk on the grass and not on the sidewalk.
May I make a suggestion?
You make a suggestion?
The stormwater part of our comments requests or had discussed the driveway and how previously that area was impervious, it was grass based on the existing survey information. Now it's going to be all impervious. So in lieu of capturing the water in a trench drain and sending it out to the county drainage system, would a dry well, additional stormwater capturing on site be helpful in this nature? Because we had such an additional lot coverage increase. If that's an issue, yeah.
We're willing to agree to increase the amount of capacity. From my limited understanding, the roof water that would be increased would be cleaner, whereas collecting the runoff from the street tends to require more maintenance in the dry wells, what I understand.
It is only a part.
Feels like we're
area.
drifting a little bit though from the central concern over here, which was lot coverage.
We
The
are.
stormwater management is interesting, and we appreciate in Summit as much stormwater capacity you can control. on
I will
site.
never object to more
Right,
stormwater.
more stormwater, please, right?
Great.
Know your board, right?
Yeah.
But
Just
we'd
an
like to see.
additional help, this is a.
No,
yeah.
you're fitting in real well here, Timothy. You got it.
We always like
What's
to
the
see the
amount of area
variances
for the
reduced
permeable
to the
pad?
extent that they can be.
Square
So
footage.
Okay, proposed wise, permeable patios, we have 1,858 square feet.
What does that count in terms of a percentage where we're at around 47, if I'm not mistaken?
Right.
And that would bring us down, recognizing these are permeable patios, what would that bring the lot coverage down to?
I believe that would be about another 1 to 2%.
What
I'd
was
have
the
to-
number again?
It would be 1858.
Divided by the 27,671
Yep.
times 100?
Actually, 6.7%. Well, that's total 1858 is 6.7%.
So it'd be reducing
Substantial,
the
Making all these.
actual, the actual lot coverage from the 47.1 down to what?
Basically about 41.5%.
So where 35% is the standard. So we're coming within an amount that is a percentage of difference.
Is that instead of reducing the driveway or in addition to reducing the driveway?
Oh, no, that's just it. That's just saying in terms of what your lot coverage is, you know,
Yeah.
the permeable pavers get you down to 41, then reducing the driveway, what does that do?
I think that was like 3.8%. I was doing some quick
Yeah.
math.
It's probably about 4%. I got to
Let's
take
get that number.
That'll get you there. Yeah. Do we just buy the premise, though, that permeable pavers don't count?
Every time that,
I'm persuaded by your argument, but I just want to make sure that the board is following. I mean, the environmental commission would appreciate it.
I mean,
was gonna say
under
the
the
environmental
DRO,
commission's
You gotta throw them a bone every couple of years, you know? But-
I mean, weren't we going to like include in our annual report a proposal that somehow we give some credits, but it hasn't happened yet, so, I mean,
Talked
I
about
think.
that at the end of the meeting, actually. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
If we were
Wasn't
to,
there.
I'm sorry,
go ahead,
if we were to reduce it 18 down to what number?
16,
16? Okay.
16? I thought we were going to 12.
15?
I thought 12 was the requirement.
Keep going.
Yeah, you're
14.
14.
Down to 15.
Okay, so that'd be 3 foot less, which is about 255 square feet. I estimate about 85 of length of the driveway
Yes.
we'd be able to reduce, and divide that by 27691. 1%. It's about another percent.
Why 15 as opposed to 12?
Actually, 15 would probably be not a bad compromise, because you'd still just about get 2 cars past that. It's tight, but you can do it. But if we went to 12, that's that much more area.
Right.
Yeah, so that's another 3 feet, which would be up to 2% then.
With the going to 15, you're now at around 40% or 35%.
Taking into account the permeable patio, yes.
This would probably be the first application where the applicant has not said in response to the environmental commission, we'll consider it. And so far, that consideration has said.
Driveway and parking area to be permeable pavers too while you're at it? Why don't you put a cherry on top?
There you go.
All right, Joe.
I mean,
Sorry, Joe's
this
got
isn't
it.
a single-family home, right? You are talking about 8 cars.
Yes. At least, right. The ingress and egress, I guess in my view, the ingress and egress of 4 dwelling units should be manageable with a single width driveway. You know, everyone's got an opinion on that.
Joe, what's your opinion on this?
My question is, what's the grade of this driveway? Remember, we're talking about 40 feet. We now get into ice situations, and somebody's coming down a 40-foot, it's not that long, but a 40-foot drop. Are we sliding into each other? Do we need the width for safety purposes to avoid that? Or, you know, I mean, I'm not quite sure how we're handling this whole 40-foot from top to bottom change in height. I know we're taking care of 7 feet of it inside the house, but outside the house, how are we handling that?
Well, the 40-foot is from the front of the property to the rear of the property. Okay? For the driveway itself goes from an elevation of about 498 down to 479 at the sidewalk. So 498 up by the garage area to 479, okay? So that's about 19 feet difference.
Okay.
And over that length of the driveway, it's at 15%. It does soften up down by the roadway itself. I believe that's a 5% grade, if I remember correctly. And then from there, it does start sloping up at about a 15% grade, which is allowable by residential.
I'm sorry, I missed the percentage.
15%, 1.5, yep. And that's allowable by residential site improvement standards, which is the maximum slope that you're allowed to have. So we do meet
5%
that.
when you're pulling off Springfield Avenue?
Right.
Correct.
So, and then going up to 15%. Now, the ordinance is at what? Let's see, some of the
10%,
But that's preempted by the RSIS?
correct. And the existing driveway that's there now, just so everyone knows, that's at 15% as well.
It is what?
15% as well. So we're mimicking that slope.
Our ordinance is preempted by,
RSIS, yes.
Yes.
RSIS controls on a residential site improvement standard.
okay, I'm really
Now, what-
concerned about safety, and this grade is, with all the, well, we'll get to executive session.
Well, when we talk about
Let's
the,
talk about that for a minute, though.
when
What
we
are
talk-
some of the steps that you would take as a civil engineer to ameliorate whatever potential negative impact of that distance at that slope in a variety of weather conditions?
Well, I think your ordinance with the 12-foot wide does recognize that, but my concern would only be the length of the driveway. As I stated, somebody turning, coming down, somebody coming back up, that's the only issue I really would have. From an emergency vehicle standpoint, anything's happening there, ambulance-wise, they're gonna come up the driveway and stop. That's it. You know, let's face the fact, they're just gonna stop there, whichever doorway they have to go in, they're gonna go in. So they're just gonna block the driveway no matter which way you look at it, I believe. Even from a fire standpoint, fire trucks are not gonna turn up that driveway and go up the driveway if the house is on fire. They keep those trucks away from the house, fallout zone, I believe it's called.
you
But anyway.
understand Vice Chairman's point is that having 15 feet gives you additional area just to avoid any questions in dealing with the grade of 15%.
Right, that's correct. I would say that the 15%, with the extra width, it does help for maneuvering up and down the driveway, turning into the site, along with coming down this from the garage area as well.
And if you were skidding on ice, would you realistically be able to control a vehicle such that you can narrowly avoid a collision within a 15-foot?
Compared to 18-foot?
With, I know I'm asking a question I already know the answer to.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, I agree.
Which is
It-
where my 15-degree grade is the problem.
Yeah, it's the grade, it's
I
not the width.
need a grade that comes down to 12 or 10 to be able to get this thing past safety.
So maybe taking us back to the lot coverage question. Are we seeking to amend the application to narrow the driveway width?
We are, in order to reduce the lot coverage, at
What are we amending it to?
15.
Okay.
To the extent, obviously, that the board controls a site plan application, and because it's managing a site plan application here, it assumes the powers of a planning board. As assuming the powers of the planning board, it is not limited to that which is just presented to it. So it's a little bit different once you become in charge of your site plan. If you decide that in terms of the site plan aspect of your review, you want something, a particular egress or width, then that is certainly within your jurisdiction. So when we say 15, it gives us a number. To the extent that a board member says, I want 14, then within the confines of the planning aspect of this major site plan, and that is the request that we're making of the board. It's not just a variance, it's also a site plan that is within your bailiwick.
Within that newly expanded bailiwick, is the DRO an appropriate point of reference for the decisions we're making?
In that, it is controlled by RSIS. And RSIS is the statewide standard, so that in the development of residential site improvement, everyone knew what the rules were, because it turned out among the 550 municipalities, each one was coming up with a different curb face and a different everything. So they really had to standardize it because it became impossible for the construction of homes, similar to what's done with the Uniform Construction Code. It used to be municipalities had their own Uniform Construction Code. And they said, no, guys, we have to standardize this, but to make sure it's done correctly. Now, in terms of the board's understanding of its planning authority, to the extent that it recognizes that this is consistent with the RSIS, the point that's being made by Vice Chairman Steiner is something that has been directed to the engineer, which is there something else that can be done here? Can you step your driveway down? So in other words, can you plateau? Rather than having it just go at 15, can it be stepped? Is that a possibility? What could be done in terms of reducing the grade at that length?
That's what we did at the mouth of the driveway. We reduced the grade just for that reason, so you can come up and stop and have a stopping area that's less than the 15%. Even up at the top end, that 15% stops prior to the turn, and then it becomes fairly flat up at the top in front of the garage areas. So I feel that that's sufficient. And it's basically only an 80-foot run, so to have a transition where you come down to a little plateau and back again, that wouldn't really make sense in this situation. A nice uniform slope like this, especially at 15%. 15% is not that drastic. Think about it, it's like 1.5 feet and 10 feet, so it's really not a steep driveway, to be honest with you. There's much steeper out there that have been constructed over the years before these standards were put in place. So the 15% to me is a comfortable situation, even in a bad weather situation.
If you have additional questions, yes, please.
So I'm going to just stay with the driveway and just ask a question regarding the lighting. There is a walkway in the front. This isn't in the memos, it was based on the testimony provided on the lighting today. The walkway in the front, will there be lights provided to enter, into the walkway in that location from, I guess, whoever's entering the homes?
I believe there will be.
Okay.
If not, we will provide it, and again, it will be the low lighting. And landscape architect will review that with you.
Absolutely.
We'll gladly add some if we don't have any.
Okay. Keeping with the stormwater that we just discussed, are you going to provide the extra storage for this even reduced driveway as part of the amended plans?
Yes, we'll show some calculations and provide as much storage as possible.
Okay.
We are somewhat limited in the front yard area.
Yeah.
As you can see, the dry wells are expanding. If we add another dry well, it becomes much larger.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll accommodate as much storage as possible.
Okay. Let me see what else is there. We had, the AC units were shown on the grading and drainage plan. I believe they had conflicts with the landscaping plan. Just want to make sure that's confirmed.
The placement of all the outside utilities will conform with the ordinance. I also saw your comment with regard to the generator.
Yeah.
So the answer would be this will conform with the ordinance.
Okay. The last thing was there are steep slopes disturbance, but I don't think the actual disturbance was shown on the plans, the square footage or acreage.
I believe that was shown on our soil erosion plan
Okay.
as a note, usually note 24, if I remember right. Sorry, note 23, area disturbance, 0.532 acres.
Okay, and that will require a variance?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, yes.
I have gone through it. Thank you.
Mr. Weber, would you accept as a condition of the application the engineer's letter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Including item 11, that shows 10% grade. Because item number 11, proposed grading should now be, should not exceed 10%. That's in the engineer's letter, right?
They mentioned the RSIS allows for 15%, but I will let them.
RSIS is the residential site improvement standards that have been established by DCA.
So that would be reflected in your report. Because this conflicts with the...
It would likely be a point of clarification in the resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Just compliance with those conditions with the exception of.
Yes.
Or superseded. Can we talk about trash and recycling?
Residential in nature, they'll have to put it out at the curb for pickup, municipal pickup.
So in Summit, we have the good fortune of having our trash collected at the rear of our properties. Is there space allocated here within the property to allow for residential units to store their garbage and recycling cans?
In the garages,
Inside the garage, the newly expanded garage?
newly expanded garages.
And we
That
believe that's
would not
adequate?
have room for
We
two.
believe that's
If
adequate.
if you require 2 cars to park in those garages, you don't have space for garbage cans.
What's the interior width again?
It's 20.
19.
If it's 20, I think
Yeah,
they
we
could,
went, I'm pretty sure we went to 20 feet because we did have enough room on the side yard without creating a side yard variance.
That's correct.
I've got 21 feet in my garage and I can store cans, no problem. And I got 2 big cars.
21 feet wide.
Could you foresee, Mr. Weber, a bylaw of the
But
condominium
wait,
association
I
being?
thought we got to 19 feet 1 inch.
No, they
Here at 20.
got them to 20.
They got to
The
20.
rest of them to the ground.
But they don't have to, the cans have to be on the side, they could be in the back of the garage.
But unless they're gonna get up at some ungodly hour in the morning to meet the garbage men, those cans have to be outside at night. Where are they going when you put them out at night for the morning pickup?
If they're at the rear of the property, we can actually have them right in these 2 areas here on either side, just for an overnight. Sorry, thank you. That would be right in these areas here. You can actually have an area there to have the garbage cans for the outside pickup. This is approximately 9 feet, I believe, right in that area here. This is a little bit less, looks like about 8 feet.
50 more, is they take them out and put them in front of between the garages and they get picked up. Some bring them out to the curb.
Well, this is not a legal point of view. I would
The
expect,
easiest thing is just make sure that's covered in the bylaws and
that's what's going to happen. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman.
So what are you going to capture in the resolution regarding trash and recycling, Andy?
Well, I think we can leave it up to them on exactly where they're placed, but from the testimony I've heard, there's sufficient area to place the cans overnight. Unless the board particularly wants to see an exact location, I think we can leave it as is.
Storage inside the garage, except in anticipation of collection the
Very
night
good.
before. To that effect. Okay. Dipti, you're good, right?
Yes.
Ed, anything for you for this?
Just a few minor questions.
Please.
I promise it's not about substance. But the pervious material that you're providing, will there be a gravel subbase underneath that for the collection of the water?
Yes,
Okay, so that's anticipated, so the pervious isn't just for the surface itself? Okay.
correct.
Could at some point you confirm the FAR that we're looking at, as well as the coverage? I apologize, it's been a moving target, and I just needed it to be summarized, and I'm sure it would be great if we summarize that for the record. Do you have that available at this point, or?
I believe I do, yes.
Okay.
I do believe the floor area calculation would be at 32%.
Well, the number was 31.4. You're providing a little additional flexibility there. Is that what you're doing?
Based on the numbers that we discussed with the increase of the garage area,
Yeah.
this is with the increase of the garage, to be, I believe it was 22 by 42 is what I calculated that number as, comes up to 32%.
And the overall coverage?
Yeah, let me look at my
I have
scribble.
a feeling that we're not going to complete the application this evening, so it may be something that you'll want to spend some time after a good night's rest, and perhaps in consultation with Krista Anderson as well.
Yes.
Yep.
I apologize to do that to you, but it seems like it's a moving target.
I need to
No,
apologize.
it's fine.
I do have those numbers as well. The lot coverage I have at 48.4. Yep, and the building coverage was at 20.5 due to the increase of the garage. But we'll verify those numbers too, and review them with the zoning officer.
Just to touch on the wall heights, I think we were asking about that relative, I know the landscape architect's going to talk about how they are between patio areas. Anything over 5 feet?
The walls between the units, I spoke to the applicant, he was estimating those to be at about 6 feet. Would add some nice privacy between the courtyard areas. The wall across the back of the property is a 5-foot high wall maximum.
Okay.
Varies because of the slope of the land.
Then in relation to that, I'm sure a landscape architect may talk about this, but do you anticipate any tree removal on the property as a result? I imagine we will within the interior, but towards the front or sides? Or the interior of the property?
Yes, mainly within the building envelope area.
If you could describe that for the resident, I'm sure that's interest in the back as
Okay,
well.
there we go. For the most part, the trees along the, can I highlight this? Sorry.
It should do it now. Oh, okay, so when you touch it.
So that would be this area here. Those are existing evergreens, they will remain. These trees in this area will remain. And these trees, this one,
50-year-old, oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, and probably, I believe those two. I think I counted between all the trees and evergreens on the site, 17 are to be removed.
Okay, how about towards the rear of the property?
No, back in here, no.
They stay, right?
Yeah, they stay. If I may just go to my grading plan. If you can see, this is 30.1 feet to the wall, the proposed wall. So we're basically disturbing just about the same amount, just a little bit further back. That would be, here's the area of disturbance right now, which is just about the same at approximately 30 feet.
So circle the trees along the rear lot line that are remaining.
That would be these in here. All these in here. Our limit of disturbance is basically right in this section here. So the last, say, 25 feet or so will not be disturbed.
Thank you for confirming. That's all the question.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the board for the civil engineer? Mr. Bowen, anything you'd like to ask, please? Yeah, we're here.
But don't now.
Okay.
Do you need
No.
to now, so, because I can do a, yeah.
Mr. Bowen's going to come forward with a couple of questions and will likely bring us to a conclusion, but.
Did I mishear, or is there a generator? Because I think the submission on the city website said there wasn't going to be a generator.
There's no generator proposed at this point. If a generator is put in, it would comply with the city ordinance.
Okay, so I misheard. And then, just a quick comment on those trees in the northern, those are volunteer Norway maples. If they get taken out, that'd be great. They're pretty sickly. And then, I guess my question on is centers on the parking in the garages. I think we've all parked in 20-foot, 2 cars in 20-foot wide garages, which is doable if you're coming in straight, but these require parking on an arc, right? And if I could ask the engineer to just kind of point on the plan how someone could come up from the driveway and maneuver an automobile reasonably efficiently into the parking places, particularly those closest to the driveway. What do you imagine, a 3-point, 5-point turn, or what?
Well, of course, depending on the driver, but.
Not Mary Wayne
Understood. You can see up there too. So basically, coming up this way, oh, look at that.
Oh, no, don't erase.
That's erasing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's good.
Oh, sorry.
Erase it on the third.
It's okay.
Okay. As far as the left-hand side, as you're coming up the driveway this way, I do believe you'll be able to maneuver that turn. Let's face the fact, this will be the most difficult one here. So you'll be able to come into here. You might have to do just a 2-point turn, come in and then go in straight. Same thing with this side. You might just maneuver slightly, come over here, and again, come in, maybe back up a hair and go back in straight.
But with your civil software, you can show us the approach, the turn, and the parking, right?
We
In
could,
CAD.
yes.
You might want to add that to your plans.
Okay, we could do that. Because we still do have the 18 feet here and 28 feet in this area here. So we'll gladly show maneuvering.
And just one other question. Have you done any analysis on illumination of cars coming up there at night where their headlights will go?
No, we have not, but as far as elevations go, as you're approaching this area here at 15%, that wall in the back is 5 feet high approximately in this area. So for the most part, the headlights are usually 2.5.
But the 5 feet high wall is 28 feet further away from the crest.
If I can, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
The
Mr.
point that Mr. Bowen is making is one that we'll address, and since we're not going to conclude the hearing tonight, that is a point that will provide that information to make sure that it will, in fact, not allow any headlights to shine into this property.
Thank you very much. Any other questions you'd like to leave the applicants with, Mr. Bowen, as they go back and do their homework?
Good thing.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Mr. Weber, welcome to say anything in conclusion for this evening, if you'd like to just draw us to a close, but
No, I would ask that the hearing be called and that we be scheduled for the next available hearing.
we're looking at warmer weather, June 5th.
No. Sorry. Is there any way that the board may consider getting us on earlier? That's really far away for our applicant. June, I didn't mean that was a joke, but
Tell us how you really feel.
I realize it came off a little strong, but really I'm joking.
About how much longer of the testimony do you think is left?
30 minutes to an hour. Can
An
we
hour.
promise that we'll
Be realistic.
We have planning testimony left especially. Yeah.
Well, we have the engineer, the
It has to
landscape
just
architect,
be-
Planner.
and the planner.
Yeah.
Not to advocate for the applicant, but I believe their citation of a 1031 exchange before makes this somewhat of an exigent circumstance.
For the applicant, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that fair to say, Mr. Weber?
I didn't know that.
Understanding
Thank you.
I take your word for it.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
I guess we could try for May 15th, but I do already have 2 other applicants on that evening.
Can we
We're okay with
go
that.
on with that? And then if, if those 2 applications are still going, we can, agree to carry it to the next one, of course. We don't want to, impact the
So
board's
May
scheduling,
15th,
but-
without further notice, waiving the time with which the board may act?
Of course.
Excellent. Then we'll need a motion from the board to adjourn the case, though to rehear it starting May 15th is what we're targeting. Do we have a motion? A second?
Second.
Second, okay.
Thank
Do
you.
you need a voice vote, or what do you need on this? Roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Newell. Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Chairman Spark.
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
See you again shortly. Now we'll move to resolutions and minutes for approval.
Okay. So the first resolution we have is 30 Hawthorne Place. This is ZB-22-2167. The eligible voters are Vice Chairman Steiner, Ms. Newell, Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, Ms. Toth. Who would like to make a motion?
Second. And this is as amended this afternoon?
Yes.
Okay. Vice Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Newell, Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Toth.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. The next one we have is 17 Stockton Road. This is ZB-22-2169. The eligible voting members are Vice Chairman Steiner, Ms. Newell, Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Mullen, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, Ms. Toth. Would someone like to move that?
Moved.
Second.
Okay. Vice Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Newell, Mr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
Ms. Toth.
Yes.
The motion carries. So next we have the minutes for approval from February 6th. Can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Okay, voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Before you rush out, within the next few days, you'll be receiving via email a copy of the 2022 summary of applications. Rather than submitting to the governing body our annual report at the end of the following year, so December, we're trying to do it in the end of the first quarter of the year to follow. So you'll receive a summary of those applications. I will circulate a draft. It'll be substantially similar to what you saw in December, but I think while you had a shade tree one, we were thinking about incorporating. If there's anything else we'd like to, permeable pavers, for example, we want to put some extra emphasis on it. And then one of the
Stackers and
parking stackers, lay it on me here. Yeah, we'll do it. And then the chagrin of future chairs, I will propose to our council liaison that I present the actual application at a council meeting. So sorry for anybody that has to do that in the future, but I'm going to try to start that tradition if we can. So with that, off to bed. Awesome.